To overcome something, you have to understand what a perfect engine it is.
The purpose of this video is simple. We will spiral down the Book of Saul.
I wrote down a few notes that I think are intricate and I believe are extremely relevant to the concept of this movie. I think most people have connected the spiral merely to Billy the Puppet and its appearances in some of Jigsaw's traps. But we must dig deeper. The spiral is fundamental to nature, appearing on animals such as snails and seashells. But it also appears on pigs. It's actually the tail of a pig. So that is extremely important, as the pig may be the replacement of Billy the Puppet. I've coined it Piggy the Puppet. We'll see if that catches on. The pig mask was Kramer's identity during his early hunts, but mostly became the mask for his apprentices. A variant of the pig mask lives on in the Book of Saul, so that's very crucial, and we have to pay attention to that. The path of a point in a plane moving around a central point while continuously receding from or approaching it is 1A definition of a spiral. And if you just read that again, that is essentially the Saw franchise. You also have a second definition that reads three-dimensional curve, such as a helix with one or more turns about an axis. So that also reminds me of the Saw franchise when you're referring to twists and turns. In many cultures, the spiral has become a powerful symbol for creation and growth, used by many ancient cultures and religious traditions. Having said that, it's also viewed as the symbol of change. Life cycles and cycles of the natural world create change. The old dies away so the new can come forth.
Hello, Detective Banks. Do you know where your officers are?
Each of us progresses from child to adult to old age. As such, the spiral is not a symbol of stagnation, but rather of change, progression, and development. It embraces these things as good and healthy and helps one to accept change, even though we often are more comfortable retreating into tradition and old standard ways.
There are rules.
And that is definitely a glimpse of what we can expect. It won't be Jigsaw, or maybe it will be. It's obviously a perfect way to look at Spiral from the Book of Saw. It's definitely a new angle. Those words are crucial when it comes to Spiral. If you paid attention to the first line, life cycles and cycles of the natural world create change. It's the mere cycle, death, and rebirth of Jigsaw's philosophy that I think is key and maybe a glimpse of why they called it Spiral as well. The spiral symbol points to not merely a copycat killer, but someone who has taken the mantle, who has fully embraced the philosophy of Jigsaw.
Congratulations, you are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive, but not you. Not anymore.
Remember that Kramer despised murderers, so it's pretty reasonable to assume that if he was alive, he would have personally placed Logan in the game.
Unlike you, I've never killed anyone.
Just for merely assuming the mantle without permission. But the spiral symbol alludes to someone who may be trying to recreate Jigsaw, not just merely use and abuse Jigsaw's philosophies and contraptions for his own personal convenience, which is what Logan did. Logan did it for revenge. He didn't do it for the philosophy. So that's where this brings me to this. Imitation is more distasteful than flattery when taking credit for someone else's work, according to John during his discussions with Hoffman.
They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Logan imitated John and Jigsaw, even using his voice traps and game, a game he was supposed to play, but he never woke up from the anesthesia, so Kramer spared his life. Hoffman framed Jigsaw to get revenge on the murderer of his sister, but Logan framed Jigsaw to kill Detective Halloran for his corruption, which led to the freeing of Logan's wife's killer. Neither gave their victims a chance.
You have a choice. Scream or don't.
However, one huge moment was Logan explaining he wanted to see if he was as talented as Kramer himself. That could be the setup for the sequel. That could be what Spiral's setting up. Hoffman never cared to compete with Kramer, only to avenge his murdered sister. Could John have had a plan in place for future copycats, just like he did for Hoffman? And a lot of this same logic applies to the unknown inspired killer that we're to see in Spiral. Having said all of that, in my opinion, Jigsaw would have had a lot more respect towards the Spiral killer, is what I'm anointing him now, for creating his own games rather than Logan, perversing his philosophy and using his name, using his voice and his traps and his legacy and framing him during a murder investigation. How is that related to Spiral from the Book of Saw? One thing is clear is that the Spiral Killer is deeply connected to law enforcement. We don't know the specifics yet, but it does match most of the accomplices that Jigsaw kept close. Amanda, she was in and out of jail as a drug addict. Hoffman, obviously, he was one of the main detectives throughout most of his games while Jigsaw was living. He also had Logan, who may not have been connected to the police force. He obviously was in some sort of way, as he was a mortician and he handled autopsies, so he was involved in investigations, and he was in the military. So there's a law enforcement angle to a lot of Jigsaw's accomplices. So this fits the bill. But this appears to be the first accomplice to stand on their own. Although Amanda and Hoffman have shown to put their own stamp on the game, Jigsaw orchestrated and engineered every single game, where this inspired killer, which is what I'm trying to convey to you, has created all these contraptions, or the Book of Saw is literally an instruction manual for all future contraptions and traps that Jigsaw had planned for the future. Let's rewind to the fact that Dr. Gordon was given all the secrets. So will Dr. Gordon come back to attack Logan? Will he come back to attack the inspired killer in Spiral? But I see all these stories spiraling all together and converging eventually. And I do believe the law enforcement, Dr. Gordon, Logan, and this new inspired killer all have a connection. I'm looking forward to watching this movie. Rewatching it and breaking it down and seeing all the connection it has. And if you watch this video, I appreciate it. Like and subscribe so that you can see much more of these videos. Thank you so much.